Hello, my name is Dr. Ty-Ria Jenkins, and as I walk through this case study data review for the third grade math assessment, my goal is to move beyond just looking at numbers and really understand the story of data. Grounded in the work of Bernhardt, I approach this process by examining multiple measures of data to identify patterns, strengths, and gaps. At the same time, I lean on FIS's emphasis on using data as a tool for action, not just reflection. This presentation reflects both analysis with purpose and leadership with intention. As I engaged in this analysis, I centered three key outcomes. First, I worked to identify trends and patterns across formative assessment data, paying close attention to where students are excelling and where misconceptions persist. Second, I evaluated gaps in both instruction and assessment practices because if the data is off, our decisions will be too. And finally, I developed targeted next steps that are responsive, differentiated, and actionable. This aligns directly with Bernhardt's framework of continuous improvement and FIS's call to ensure that data leads to meaningful instructional shifts. Today, I will walk through the third grade level composition, highlight key data trends, and then move into instructional next steps. My focus is not just on what the data shows, but what we are going to do about it as a team. Below you can see the grade level composition. As a whole, there were 80 students who took the assessment. 10 of those students were students with special needs, 9 students being English language learners, and there was one student that was classified as a non-reader. Within third grade, there are also 3 homeroom teachers. One homeroom class having 21 students, with 3 students who have special needs, 4 who are English language learners, and 1 non-reader. The second homeroom had 27 students, 3 students who were classified as students with special needs, 3 students who are English language learners, and there were no non-readers. And in the last homeroom, the biggest homeroom, there are 32 students with 4 having special needs, 2 who are English language learners, and no non-readers. In AT's class, I noticed that during the pretest, the majority of students were clustered in the 40% range, with a small number reaching 80 and 100%. After instruction, there is a visible shift upward, with more students now being in that 60% band. While this indicates growth, I'm not seeing enough movement into those mastery levels. This tells me that instruction may have supported surface level understanding, but didn't really push students into deeper conceptual mastery. I'm also wondering if students were given enough opportunities to engage in higher order problem solving, or if instruction leaned more towards procedural practice. Now, JJ's data stands out immediately. Having 27 students, so all of her students, at 0% on the pretest is a significant gap and that cannot be overlooked. This suggests that students either lack foundational prerequisite skills or they have limited exposure to the assessed standards. Post-test data shows some movement. Students were now spread out across 40 to 60%, but we still have 12 students who were at 0%. This tells me that while instruction may have reached some students, it did not reach all. From my experience, this is where we have to think about access. Were scaffolds in place? Were we differentiating effectively? Or were we teaching as if all students started at the same place? Now, JS's class presents a different narrative. Students began with relatively strong performance, with many already scoring between that 60 and 100% range. However, post-test data shows a redistribution, with more students falling into the 40 and 60 ranges. That regression raises concern for me. It makes me question whether the assessment increased in rigor, whether instruction was misaligned, or whether students experienced cognitive overload without enough of built-in supports. This is a reminder that high-performing groups still require intentional planning and differentiation to maintain and extend their learning. Across all three classrooms, I see a need for stronger vertical alignment and a shared understanding of what mastery truly looks like. As I shift to support teacher data, I'm thinking about alignment and impact. According to FIS, effective data use requires us to examine adult actions just as critically as student outcomes. For the support teachers, they had a total of 33 students, with 5 of those students being students with special needs, 5 students being English language learners, and 1 non-reader. For our first support teacher, Abigail, she had a total of 14 students who she provided services for, 1 of those students being a student with special needs, and 2 being English language learners. For Candace, she had a total of 7 students that she provided support for, 3 of those students being students with special needs, and 3 of those students being English language learners, and she also had 1 non-reader. Lastly was Jennifer. Jennifer had 12 students total, with 1 of those students being a student with special needs, and she had no English language learners or non-readers. Abigail's data shows movement from 40% range into the 60%, which tells me her instruction is helping students grow. However, the absence of students reaching that 80% or higher suggests that instruction may not be pushing students towards mastery. I'm wondering if her small group instruction is focused more on remediation rather than acceleration. Candace's data shows limited growth, with students still spread across the lower performance bands for the post-test. This raises concerns for me about instructional strategies and clarity of focus during intervention time. Are students working on targeted skills, or are sessions too broad? From my experience, when growth is minimal, it often points to a need for a tighter alignment between core instruction and intervention. Jennifer's data reflects a brighter spot, with students moving into higher performance bands, including 80%. This suggests that her instructional practices may be more effectively aligned to standards and students' needs. As a leader, I see this as an opportunity to leverage her strategies as a model for the team. This is where collaboration becomes crucial. Overall, support teacher data reinforces the need for consistency. If we want equitable outcomes, we must ensure that all students, regardless of who they are assigned to, receive that high quality and aligned instruction. When I step back and look across all data sets, several key trends become more pronounced. First, growth is present but not sufficient. Students are moving, but they are not moving far enough. This suggests that while instruction is having an impact, it may lack the rigor or depth needed to move students to proficiency. Second, there is a clear inconsistency across classrooms and instructors. Some groups show steady growth while others remain stagnant or even regress. This inconsistency tells me that we do not yet have a unified approach to instruction. From a leadership perspective, this is where I have to focus on building coherence, ensuring that all teachers have a shared understanding of standards, expectations, and instructional strategies. Third, foundational skill gaps are a major barrier, particularly evident in JJ's homeroom. Students starting at 0% indicates a disconnect between prior learning and current expectations. This is where scaffolding and intentional backwards planning becomes critical. Fourth, mastery is limited across the board. Very few students are reaching 80% or 100% range, even after instruction. That tells me we need to rethink how we define and teach for mastery. Are we providing enough opportunities for students to explain their thinking, apply concepts in new contexts, and engage in productive struggle? Using Bernhardt's framework, I'm connecting achievement data with instructional practice and curriculum alignment. At the same time, FIS reminds me that this analysis must lead to action. Otherwise, it's just numbers on a page. Based on this analysis, my next steps are more intentional and rooted in both data and experiences. Student work analysis is needed. I want to go beyond percentages and dig into actual student responses. This will help us identify specific misconceptions and patterns in thinking. In my experience, this is where the most powerful instructional shifts begin. While having those intentional student work samples available to be able to dig a little deeper, it is also important to have intentional grouping. This grouping will be skill-based, not just score-based. Students who are struggling with the same concept will be grouped together so instruction can be targeted and precise. This ensures that we are meeting students exactly where they are. Alignment of resources with support teachers is crucial. I will work closely with support teachers to ensure that intervention time is directly aligned to grade level standards and classroom instruction. This includes co-planning and using shared data to drive those decisions. Having focused small groups will be beneficial. Small group instruction will be more structured and purposeful with clear objectives, modeling, guided practice, and opportunities for immediate feedback. The goal is to move students efficiently from misconception to understanding. And of course, finally, we will model success for all students. We will implement consistent progress monitoring. This includes short, frequent checks for understanding and collaborative data discussions. As FIS highlights, data-informed leadership is cyclical. We act, monitor, reflect, and adjust. Thank you for listening to my case study.